and to also start celebrating, right? Because our ancestors went through hell and back, but we still must honor them and celebrate them. We may come from legacies of sacrifice, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So there are definitely patterns and things that are up to us to disrupt, but we still need to honor them and work with them and call on them to help us not just heal up our stuff, but to change it for future generations to come.
You know what's amazing? So I want to ask a question because I want the audience to understand this. So when you say ancestral trauma or ancestral healing, what does that mean? Because there's going to be a lot of people listening that are going to go, that's interesting, but what is that? Right.
Mhm.
And then the other thing I want to ask you to kind of give us insight into also is, I know what you mean, Shanita, when you say I discovered my ancestors' spirit, and I was able to intuitively tap in to a non-physical communication with my ancestors that walked before me. And I am in a spiritual, intuitive conversation and collaboration with them. I get that because I'm a psychic. That's the work that I do. I'm listening to you going, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because I too have done things like that. But there are many people listening that would probably be like, what does she mean she connected to her ancestors and how did she do? So these are just things that I'm throwing at you to kind of see maybe if you have and I know I asked two questions there, but
That's okay. Part A, part B. Yeah. For sure. All really great questions, because when people started talking about this stuff years back, I was like, I think that relates to me, but I don't quite get it, or like I don't understand it, or like how do I get access to that? Is that only for the really intuitive people, and like I'm just like excluded from the group, And then that made me feel some type of way. I was like, I want to talk to my ancestors, like what's going on here, So when I say ancestral healing, I mean that my ancestors, and for me, I speak from, 2, 3 generations back, um, they went through stuff. They went through big traumas and they went through little traumas. And so the collection of all of those traumas led to certain patterns of behaviors and mindsets that were unserving, unhealthy, um, for themselves and for their families. And when I talk about the healing, what does that actually look like? It looks like me not succumbing to those very behaviors and patterns and mindsets, because culturally, so it's not like they went through this stuff and then genetically you get it. That's not ancestral trauma. It's it's not conditioning, but it's the socialization within your generations, right? So my grandmother did certain things a certain way. And then what happened? My mother did certain things a certain way. So naturally, I see I'm in what I'm growing up in. And
right.
now I'm going to do things a certain way. So when I talk about patterns, that's what I mean. Because
Becomes part of
you're
your programming. Right.
exactly, it's part of your programming, it's part of your, I call it cultural conditioning. A lot of it is cultural, and you grow up in it, and you grow up, you don't know what you don't know. So you do things the way you do things, or you see people do things a certain way. And then at some point, there's a part of you that goes, huh, that doesn't feel right.